Well, Paul, thank you for joining us today. It's exciting to see the draft one off without any major hitches, at least on our side. And we're hoping to follow up on a fantastic article written by Sports Illustrated about you and your team and how you pulled it off. So I was told I can't make jokes about any of the draft picks, either for us or competitors, but I really wanted to follow up with you from a technology side and learn more about how you pulled it off. So could you give us kind of a quick summary of and what it was like to make it happen?
Sure. So one of the biggest issues we had was just kind of the changing of the rules almost on a daily basis. We're kind of all used to now the daily briefings from the governor or the president on what the, stay at home, social distancing, all those different things. And so for us, the rules were kind of constantly changing about where we could do it. First, it was going to be our facility, and we couldn't have anybody in there. We could only have 10 people. And then we couldn't be in our facility. And we went to an office building, and we couldn't be in the office building. We went to a hotel. Then eventually the NFL settled on everyone had to be in their homes. And so that was kind of a little bit of a surprise to us. Like, how are we going to take, in our facility, we have a 10-foot high by 40-foot wide video wall. And how are we going to take that and put that in somebody's house? I mean, we can't do that. So there are a lot of challenges for us to try and figure out how could we replicate the process of having our draft meetings and do it all virtually and with everybody being remote.
Wow. I can't imagine. And I love the one part in the article, which I think just lives true in every IT person's nightmare, that one of the bosses is not technology literate. So that just makes it even more fun.
Rick Spielman, who I believe you're referencing there, is, Rick's great. He is not technologically savvy. He likes to joke that he is, but he kind of recognizes some of his shortcomings. But the beauty of Rick is that he really trusts people to do their job. So he kind of a lot of times will say, just make it work, and just show me how to do it. What buttons do I need to push? So the nice part is we don't get micromanaged by him. So that's very important, because a lot of times in IT you get people that have a little bit of knowledge, and they want to kind of tell you how things should be done. Well, we don't tell the brain surgeon how to do brain surgery just because we saw it on TV once. So same thing. He kind of recognizes this is what I want to have happen, and he just lets us go and do it. So despite being a little bit not tech savvy, he's pretty good to work with.
So obviously, for anybody who watched the draft or read it or the hype, we knew going in the ratings were going to be through the roof. We knew that everybody in the country is just sports starved right now. And so there's clearly some added pressure on the people behind the scenes. What was your biggest fear? What was your biggest fear going in? Like, what's going to happen?
With like a lot of, tech projects, because that's essentially what this was. It was one giant technology project. The unforeseen, the thing that you didn't think of. And we did mock drafts, we did tests, we had a generator at our GM's house. We actually brought in a second internet provider into his home. So he had two different internet providers so we could switch back and forth. We had uninterruptible power supplies. We had all these different things. And it's like, well, what didn't I think of? And we felt like we had covered everything. Kind of ironic, one of the UPSs that we had actually faulted literally 5 minutes after the draft was over. It faulted and shut off and shut down a portion of what we were using. So I mean, we kind of got lucky with that. But you test, you plan, you test again, you try and think of all the crazy different things, and really kind of having a lot of redundancy built in. We went through things like, well, what if Rick loses all of his internet access and his phones go down? We can't get a hold of him. Who takes over at that point? What's kind of the plan of succession? So really having to go through all those different steps to make sure that we were able to successfully, submit a draft pick. We had, redundant people literally in physical different locations, like some in the Twin Cities, some out of state, ready to like submit our picks and things like that. So really just kind of the fear of the unknown, because you think you've got it all. And as we all know, there's that one thing that you didn't think of that's going to come up and surprise you.
When I'm going up on stage at a presentation or whatever it is, I have my marketing team, Jen, and other people that can make me look good. But here you had all these people that were remote that there was no control of. So was there some kind of like letter or some kind of rules that went out that said, okay, you got to dress appropriate, don't let your kids wear this? So was there any of that kind of stuff that happened? And it might not be technology related, but it's just dying to know.
There was some. We have a lot of, the NFL and the Minnesota Vikings. We have a lot of different sponsors. So believe it or not, we had to make sure that we had the appropriate. If somebody's drinking a can of soda, that it was from the right sponsor, so that we're not promoting the wrong thing. So there were a lot of moving parts that went into it. I think a lot of us have gotten used to. I like to call it the camera mullet. It's business up top and shorts on the bottom because nobody can see like your whole body. And so I think there was possibly a little bit of fear of that happening, but at the same time, I think it was a unique opportunity for people to see kind of, Roger Goodell in his basement, and what does that look like? And, what does it look like, in Rick's house? What does it look like in Mike Zimmer's house? And so kind of just seeing people in a normal environment, I think was kind of unique. And it was something that we normally don't get to do.
But let's say the draft we get a redo next week, which, by the way, the Green Bay Packers are hoping for. But if we get a redo next week, what's going to happen different?
We learned a lot. And as far as like how just our process in general, and I guess the biggest lesson that we learned was we needed to make things simpler. I mean, we had, initially kind of all these complicated plans, and we'll do, this, and we'll have multiple Microsoft team calls going, and we can mute this and do that. And as we practice, we learned that simpler is better. And so we kept simplifying that. That kind of became our mantra, was like, well, okay, can we eliminate this? Can we get rid of that? How do we simplify things? One of the biggest lessons that we learned was after the draft is over, there's kind of a mad scramble to sign players that weren't drafted. And it's always very chaotic, but it's easy to manage because everybody's in the building. Well, now all of a sudden we've got scouts, coaches, they're calling players, they're calling agents after the draft is over, and they're all in different locations. So how do we get them to communicate? And so, we developed an application that allowed people to set kind of parameters on how much we were willing to pay some of these guys. And then they were able to, if they got a signing done, they were able to enter what, the information in. Person was like generating the contract from that. So we kind of, I guess, cracked the code on how to make that work a lot better. So, I hate to say it was perfect, but it was about as close to perfect as we can get. And I would be confident just redoing the whole thing.
Did you guys get called out within the organization? Wow, you pulled it off, right? Like, was there kudos and that kind of stuff? Or is it like they expected, Paul's going to do it, no problem?
We're kind of the victim of our own success. So, we've been successful. In 2018, we moved into, Twin Cities Orthopedic Performance Center. We built this video wall. We had never done it before. We got that to work. So there is a little bit of kind of an expectation that, oh, well, the IT folks will just get it done. We had an all staff meeting on Tuesday, virtual all staff meeting, of course. And, Rick actually got very emotional when he sat and talked about not only like my team, but then Cheryl Nygaard, who is our director of IT. She handles more of the hardware networking things. He got very emotional about all the different things that we did, and how he literally felt like this was better than any draft that we had prepared for in the past, and how smoothly things went. So that was great to hear, because, a lot of times you do labor in the background and you do these like cool things, and we all think it's cool. But the average person a lot of times doesn't see it or doesn't understand it. They think it just happens.
Yeah, I think you're right. And the kudos, obviously, I was thrilled. I kept waiting for something to happen on somebody's side that wasn't supposed to, but it went really well. So any leaving comments or remarks that you'd like to just share with us that was cool about the event?
From, I guess from my like personal perspective, one of the things that was, I guess, most intimidating is, kind of going back to Rick, but also some of the coaches, they're not always like the great technological wizards that we like them to be. And so we had kind of some concerns. It's like, we're going to ask these guys to use Microsoft Teams, a platform that they're not intimately familiar with. We literally had rolled it out about a week before we went into lockdown. So there wasn't a lot of experience with that. And so we were kind of asking them to do things that were way outside of their comfort zone. And really organizationally, like, everybody kind of like stepped up and said, we're gonna listen, we're gonna be calm, We're going to do our best. We're going to ask appropriate questions. We're not going to get frustrated. And it was incredible because, you know, as we all know, a lot of times there's this kind of fear of technology or there's a fear of change. And, you know, this is a massive change. I mean, we were doing things that, you know, we hadn't thought of, you know, that we could even do. And so for, you know, all these people to kind of just sit back and say, tell me what to do. You know, if I don't get it, I'm just going to ask you a question, but I'm going to try really hard to do what you say. I mean, it was great. It was very refreshing.
Well, Paul, I really want to thank you for taking the time today. What you did last fall when you came to Fargo, North Dakota and presented on the technology behind the scenes of the Vikings was a huge hit. There's so much that goes on in professional sports that we just take for granted behind the scenes, and the guys run out there and we all cheer for them, and you guys in the background don't ever get the kudos. So I'm thrilled with how it went off, and I'm glad that you joined us again. I hope we get you up here next fall. So can you reuse this whole thing you built for my fantasy football draft maybe this fall?
Oh, sure. We'll get right on that. We'll make a couple of tweaks and we'll get you all set up. Just don't use that quarterback guy from the Packers draft. No, he'll be fine. I'm not saying that.
There's a track record that he could be in purple anytime.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Paul. Have a great day. Stay healthy.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.